Put your hands together one time. I want you to get together.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the NEPHILIM Demons Look Like Clowns. Now my friend recently sent me something which I thought I'd better share with you people. It certainly fits in with my research and the things I've been doing on this channel for the past year or two. And just so you know, this friend who sent me this information doesn't even know anything about my work or the things I like to discuss here with you guys about clowns and their connections to the ancient giants of the past, the red-haired, white-skinned, cannibalistic, giant, monstered, hybrid beings that once roamed the earth, terrorizing mankind. He knows nothing about that. Yet he sent me a link which is about this recent attempted murder that happened in the UK about a year ago, and some more information about the whole trial has come to light recently, so here it is. This is the link he sent me. So the headline reads, "Murder is like a bag of chips, you can't stop after one. Sick boast on phone of cruel and sadistic teenager, 19, who stabbed her lover 5 times during sex while wearing clown makeup as she weeps at being jailed for 11 years. Zoe Adams, 19, admitted stabbing Kieran Bewick, we'll say Bewick, 18, at her home in Cumbria. But teenager claimed she overreacted after he kissed her against her will. Adams said she dressed up in clown makeup as a joke to frighten Mr. Bewick. The stabbing left him in hospital with a collapsed lung and pneumonia. She was jailed for 11.5 years after judge rejected her versions of events." So scrolling down, let's read more about this. "A young mother obsessed with murder and male sacrifice who stabbed her on-off boyfriend 5 times with a kitchen knife while dressed in clown makeup, has been jailed for 11.5 years. Carlisle Crown Court heard Zoe Adams, 19, put a pillow over Kieran Bewick's head to make sex kinkier, only to stab him with a 10-inch blade. She admitted stabbing Mr. Bewick and causing him grievous bodily harm, but told a trial of issue she had no memory of stabbing, and claimed it was an overreaction after the teenager started kissing her against her will. The case came to court because the vast differences between Adams and Mr. Bewick's accounts of the incident, but Judge James Adkin decided the victim was telling the truth. He branded her cruel and sadistic, while the court also heard disturbing images were found on her iPhone, including one of a blood-covered woman with the caption, 'Murder is like a bag of chips. You can't stop after one.'" So here's a picture of Zoe Adams and the victim as well, Kieran. So these are quite young people, you know, they're only teenagers when this happened. So as we can imagine, that they must not have had the highest IQs or the most emotionally stable personas, as you could imagine. Clearly not from the premise of the story. So reading on, the judge said Adams planned the attack by taking both a knife and duct tape to the bedroom. He told a weeping Adams, "You had decided to cause serious bodily harm to Mr. Bewick during sex." The judge added, "I am sure by that time you had already become disinhibited by drink and drugs, and the more sadistic side of your personality had come to dominate." In his victim impact statement, Mr. Bewick said he had struggled to sleep since the attack, which left him with a collapsed lung and pneumonia. He added, "I struggled with the knowledge that someone I genuinely cared about would do this to me. Just after I got out of hospital, this thought played on my mind a lot. But having had time to think about it, I am convinced that she planned it. It wasn't personal. She was going to do it to someone, and it just happened to be me. Strangely, that makes it easier to deal with. Does it?" Wow. He said he would be mentally scarred and emotionally for the rest of his life, adding, "I have always had a fear of clowns, and Zoe knew this. This will now only increase my fear of clowns." Hell, if he catches on to this series, I'm sure that fear will go even further, more than he probably could even imagine right now. Speaking after the sentence, Cumbria Police Detective Constable Calvin Grieve said, "Any assault with a knife has the potential for fatal consequences. In this instance, the young victim of this callous and violent attack has been very fortunate to escape with his life." Adams told officers she blacked out and had no memory of the attack. Her 17-year-old victim was not so fortunate. He will have to live with the physical and mental scars of Adams' actions for the rest of his life. He has shown great courage through the investigation, not least in giving detectives a statement regarding the attack, whilst only hours into his recovery. Other messages found on Adams' phone included one stating, "I don't think about males unless said male is strapped up and being used as a human sacrifice. You should be grateful you are not a part of it." So that's a message she sent to this boy before stabbing him. Adams had previously told the court she dressed up in the clown makeup for a bit of fun and was not interested in sex with Mr. Buick. Defense barrister Dan Travers said Adams had told a probation officer the makeup was supposed to make Mr. Buick laugh. She said, "It was just a bit of fun, not to genuinely frighten him. It was the sort of silly thing we would do to each other." Adam told the court she got into bed next to Mr. Buick and they cuddled. She added, "He started to kiss my neck. I told him to pack it in. Then he touched her shoulder and she panicked," she told the court. Mr. Travers said, "What's the next thing you remember?" Adams replied, "Not being on the bed anymore, and him asking me what I had done." She had no memory of stabbing Mr. Buick, nor could she recall putting the knife in the kitchen sink. Cross-examined by the prosecutor, Mr. Wynne Jones, she said, "I don't remember holding the knife or using it." She said she only vaguely remembers going down the stairs. The court heard Mr. Buick had told her that a barefoot clown was his worst nightmare in a text message. Prosecutor Robert Wynne Jones then read aloud the defendant's text message to Mr. Buick, when she said, "I don't think about males unless said male is strapped up and being used as a human sacrifice. You should be grateful you are not a part of it." Although Adams claimed this was a joke. Adams admitted drinking vodka and smoking cannabis before the attack, and said she had no memory of the stabbing at her home in Wigton, Cumbria last July. She said she panicked when Mr. Buick, someone she classed as a good friend, kissed her. Adams told the court her next memory was of him standing before her, seriously injured, and asking why she stabbed him. Mr. Travers asked why she admitted intentionally causing Mr. Buick grievously bodily harm. "I did stab him, but I overreacted," she replied. The barrister asked how she felt about what she had done. "I can't really believe it," she said. I considered him to be one of my best friends. I just can't believe I've hurt him." Earlier, the court heard how she had told her victims, then 17, "Trust me," before stabbing him 5 times in the chest. Mr. Buick, now 18, said Adams used the knife after asking him to put a pillow over his face before having sex. She added she had brought duct tape to the room because she wanted to tie him, and the pillow was a compromise because he refused. Mr. Buick suffered what Judge James Adkins said were life-threatening injuries, 2 stab wounds to his chest, as well as cuts to an arm, a leg, and his hand. Giving her account, Adams said she and Mr. Buick were close friends, and she allowed him to stay with her when he left home. They shared an interest in writing, and he had published his own dark fantasy novel called Ascendance. She also claimed they had sex a month before the stabbing, but she regretted it. Adams said, "We should not have crossed that line," and added she made it clear it would not happen again. Mr. Travers asked Adams, who was being treated for depression, about her attitudes towards sex, and she told the court it gave her panic attacks. Adams denied wanting to tie up Mr. Buick, and said she had no idea why police had found a record on her phone of a search about the sentence for attempted murder, the charge she was originally faced. Mr. Travers then quizzed Adams about 14 gruesome images the police found on her iPhone. One had the caption, "Almost twice as many serial killers are born in November than any other month." Adams said it was a tasteless joke, adding that she had a relative born in that month. She agreed that other images found on her phone were inappropriate and admitted that she and Mr. Buick were members of a Facebook group called Murder Files for Curious People. Adams also denied having any interest in sexual violence and said she kept a knife under her bed for protection because she lived alone. The case continues. At the end of this story, which is basically the same with a few words changed, it actually ends with the judge dismissed her version of events, siding with the now 18-year-old Mr. Buick, and sentenced her on Wednesday to 11 years. So that's the story, guys, of Zoe Adams, a then 19-year-old mother. I believe it's mentioned in many other articles about her, as it says here. Mother of 19. Yeah, mother 19, stabbed boyfriend during sex after telling him men should only be used for human sacrifice. So this is a very disturbed girl, clearly into dark, sadistic things. It's within her nature, obviously. And this young lad who wrote a book called Ascendance, which is obviously quite a new agey term, and which tells me this boy is probably into quite occultic, dark, weird things himself. You know, these two were having an on-off relationship, and she seems to have tried to play the victim card after stabbing him so many times. As you read in this, she was claiming, you know, she had made it clear she didn't want to have sex with him again, but then, you know, he touched me on the shoulder and I overreacted, you know, as though he was going to rape her or something. So she was clearly just defending herself from the evil, patriarchal, domineering male who she had innocently invited into her home, who was trying to take advantage of her. So that's the angle she tried to take this act of stabbing him repeatedly, twice in the chest and on his body. She tried to play the victim card, sobbing as she was sentenced for this, claiming she didn't remember doing any of this, nor could she recall putting the knife in the kitchen, as it says here. Now, do we believe her story, that her memory went blank and something just took over her and tried to kill this boy who was in her bed? Or do we understand that she probably is twisted, this probably was predetermined and planned, and she did want to hurt him and does remember doing what she did? Who knows? Now, this links perfectly to my Nephilim demons are related to clowns in some way. Now, what got me into this originally and what made me think there's a link was this creepy clown sightings of 2016. You all remember this. People were dressing up as killer clowns, going around scaring the living daylights out of people all over America and the UK, just dressing up as clowns and menacing people. And this sparked a fear around the world of clowns in general. And this was in the build-up to when It was about to be released as well. Now, I was thinking, what on earth would possess such people to want to dress up like a clown? And if you've watched this series up to now, you'll understand what I think was possessing them. It was the Nephilim of the past. So, when this inebriated girl under the influence of vodka and cannabis was dressed as a clown, now, if my theory is correct, and clowns are a representation of a spiritual concept, of basically demons, if she dresses as a demon, could that in some way bring forth or manifest in the physical world through her body a possession of a demon who looks just like a clown? You know, that's kind of the angle I'm going at with this. It's possible. It may explain why she claims she can't remember doing it. Maybe dressed as a clown, under heavy influence, having her mind opened to easy possession and to have control taken by demons. She essentially summoned a demon to possess her and almost kill this poor boy. Maybe. Or maybe this is just a sign that this girl embraces her possession. She loves her demons. She dressed as a clown because she thought it was funny and she did want to venerate, consciously or subconsciously, the demon that's already within her, and she sadistically tried to murder this poor boy. Who knows? Now, I know I tried to go back and think, there are cases where people have dressed as clowns and committed murders. And I found this article, from October 2016, during the time when the crazy, creepy clown sightings were going on. And it says here, "It is a craze which is terrifying children and adults alike on both sides of the Atlantic, whether you like it or not. Creepy clowns lurking in dark corners, wielding the odd weapon, have closed schools, created mass panic, and kept police officers in the US and UK busy. If you saw one lurking outside your window, you'd have a good reason to be terrified. But just how dangerous are these red-nosed children's entertainers really? Popular culture from Batman's The Joker to Pennywise and Stephen King's It certainly suggests the children's party favourites do give us something to fear. And, to be fair, history does have its share of killer clowns. The mass murderer, the most notorious by a long way, was John Wayne Gacy, otherwise known as Pogo the Clown, or later the Killer Clown. Between January 1972 and December 1978, he murdered 33, note that number, a Freemason number, young men and teenage boys, burying most of them in the crawl space under his house. At the time, the twice-married Gacy was appearing as Pogo, the friendly neighbourhood clown, bringing his own brand of humour to parades, children's hospitals, and odd democratic fundraisers around Illinois. But the former manager of a fast food franchise, later executed by lethal injection, doesn't appear to have been dressed as a clown when committing the killings. What's more, it is undeniable that his other passion, politics, has produced far more murderers over the years. The Smiling Shooter. More than a decade later, an actual clown killer struck. Marlene Warren was fatally shot by a clown who arrived at her Florida home holding flowers and 2 balloons. When Mrs. Warren opened the door, the brown-eyed clown shot her before fleeing in an unmarked car. One of the balloons left behind, as the killer made their escape, said, "You're the greatest." More than 25 years later, her murder remains unsolved, and the identity of the gunman behind the white mask is unknown. And that would be it for the list of actual clown killers, if not for one more high-profile murder. The Kingpin's assassin. Francesco Rafael Orellano Felix was enjoying his birthday party in Baja California, or Baja, should I say, California, Mexico, when he was gunned down by a clown wearing a pink wig and a round red nose. This was no ordinary victim, however. The 64-year-old man shot dead in front of his family and friends, as well as politicians and sportsmen, had once controlled the drug trade along the US border. But at the time of his death, his cartel had been severely weakened. The clown's motive and choice of costume remain a mystery. So should we be scared? Let's see if the BBC can tell us if we should be scared. With just a handful of actual clown killers in the past century, the answer to whether or not this is the latest craze should have us quaking in our boots has to be no, of course. Between 1972, when Gacy began his killing spree, and Mrs. Warren's death in 1990, killing known to have been committed by clowns in the US accounted for just 0.0088% of all murders nationally. In fact, in the same time frame, there have been at least double the number of doctor-turned-serial killers. On top of that, arrests of clowns in the US have tended to be for minor offences only. So on balance, you are more likely to be killed by your kindly local doctor than the slightly creepy clown waiting for you in the shadows. Which is good news, isn't it? So obviously, the BBC plays this whole thing down, saying, guys, don't worry about it, you're not going to be killed by a guy in a clown costume anytime soon. And that's probably true. But what we are seeing lately is a rise in the symbol of the clown in media and in the actions of people. It started in 2016 with this creepy clown sighting. It coincided with the release of the film It. Obviously, Batman's The Joker film came out not so long ago when you think about it. I'm pretty sure in American Horror Story, a lot of clown theme related imagery has been out in that as well. Clowns are coming back, it seems. And for what that is worth, it may seem trivial on the surface. But I believe we live in a spiritual world, and I believe throughout my many episodes and hours of research, put into this, that there is a strong link between the image of a clown, which is a man-made caricature of a real demonic presence. And this link, to me, is pretty obvious. And if we are seeing and now revealing a new form of veneration of the clown popping up in the past few years and becoming more and more prevalent, is this not symbolic of perhaps a demonic presence on the earth becoming more and more visible and having more power and prowess and effects on people? This example here of a young girl dressing as a clown and then attempting to murder a poor boy in a pretty horrible, horrific way with a knife. Is this just another example to add on to the ever-growing collection of evidence we can find linking that the clown to some form of demonic activity? So I thought I'd just share that with you guys. This one's just a quick one. Well, I say quick, it's gone over 20 minutes. But essentially, it's a small piece to add to the larger puzzle. If you're new to this series and don't know what I'm talking about, maybe go back and watch episode 1 of this series. The playlist link will be left below this video as well, but it should come up right now as I'm speaking. Click on the link, follow the series so you understand just what I'm talking about. Thanks for listening, guys, and God bless.
Put your hands together one time. I want you to get together. I want you to get together.